Hey everyone, my name is Zach at FF Chalupa Batman. This is the 2021 Fantasy Football Season Review on the Triple Play Fantasy YouTube channel. Go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel. Don't want you to miss any great content. We have these videos coming out every Friday, plus tons of other great content coming out every day. So we are starting with CeeDee Lamb today. A lot of mixed feelings about CeeDee Lamb this year. So he finishes the wide receiver 19 in PPR, and he was the wide receiver 20 in points per game for players that played at least 8 games, and he ended up playing 16 games. So looking at his stats, he finished with 120 targets, 79 receptions, just over 1,100 yards, and 6 touchdowns. He led the team with 18.9% target share. It's about 7.5 targets per game. So that's 29th for wide receivers in target share and 22nd for wide receivers in total targets. And the problem is those just are not elite wide receiver target numbers. We thought we'd see a big boost this season with Dak Prescott coming back fully healthy and playing, and it just didn't happen. Was CeeDee Lamb bad? No, not really. He played well. His numbers are good. They're just not elite. Like everyone was hoping he would take that jump this year as a wide receiver 1, and he didn't put up those numbers. So let's see how those numbers really compare. So if we're looking at this chart brought to us by RotoViz, he had 4 weeks at wide receiver 1, so 25% of his games, which is solid, and his averages on those 4 weeks were 26.83 points per game for PPR, which is phenomenal. And then for wide receiver 2, he had 3 of those weeks, 19%. That's 18.27 points per game, which is solid. The problem was he had 9 weeks as a wide receiver 3 or worse, which is 56% of his games at 8.01 points per game. And they had 1 week inactive. That's just not good enough. That's his problem. Was you saw like when he was on, like he had a huge week 6. That was probably the peak of his powers from a value standpoint, and he really helped your team. Honestly, he was solid the first 6 weeks before the bye week. He had 4 out of 6 weeks. He helped you getting at least 18 points. But then look at the playoffs. Look at you're trying to make a push for the playoffs. Look at week 13, he was a wide receiver 1, but that was his worst wide receiver 1 week at 19 points. And then it was just all downhill from there. He just kept going down, and he did not help you get in the playoffs. He didn't help you win a championship, and that was his problem. And that's probably why so many people have such a sour taste in their mouth right now for CeeDee Lamb. Again, a lot of talent. He just did not put up the fantasy points that you were hoping for this season. So let's kind of dig into the numbers a little bit more. So he tied as the wide receiver 14 with 3 100-yard games, so solid. He tied for the wide receiver 26 with yards after catch per reception, 5.46. Again, solid. Deebo Samuel, by comparison, is around 10 yards as number 1. But really what hurt him was the red zone efficiency. So he was the wide receiver 95 in his percentage of targets coming in the red zone. It was at 19%. By comparison, his teammate, Amari Cooper, was the wide receiver 12 in this statistic. 32.3% of Cooper's targets happened in the red zone. So until we start seeing more red zone targets for CeeDee Lamb, it's hard to really see him jump up to those elite numbers. Now, PFF has CeeDee Lamb graded as the 8th highest wide receiver, 84.1, which is just below number 7, Jamar Chase, at 84.5. So again, he's got a lot of talent. He played well. He just didn't give you enough fantasy points for what you needed for where you're drafting him in 2021 and what you were expecting. And you can't really blame the Cowboys passing game. They threw the ball a lot. They were 6th in the league in attempts, so 38 attempts per game. 3rd in completions, 26 per game. 3rd highest completion percentage, just under 70% at 68.6. 2nd in passing yards. He had 4,800 total passing yards this season, so that's just under 300 a game at 282. And they was 3rd in passing touchdowns with 40, so just under 2.5 a game at 2.35. So again, there was plenty to go around. The problem was Dak Prescott spread the ball around, and CeeDee Lamb just was not hyper targeted. A lot of your wide receiver one, your elite guys, are seeing over 25% target share, even upwards in the low 30s. And CeeDee Lamb was 19%. And yes, there was a lot of volume, but even at a high volume with 19%, it's just not going to cut it. So everyone was excited for CeeDee Lamb going into 2021, and many expected he could make the jump to a wide receiver one. Dak Prescott was back after missing most of Lamb's 2020 rookie season, and even though the Dallas defense improved a lot compared to 2020, they still had a high passing volume, as you see on the screen. And unfortunately, like I said, Dak just spread the ball around, and that was great for the Cowboys offense, just not great for CeeDee Lamb. And that's why he's not having a breakout season. So as we're looking, CeeDee Lamb is going into the third year of his rookie contract in 2022. Since he was a first-round NFL draft pick, the Cowboys have a fifth-year team option. I expect them to exercise that fifth-year option when the time is right, as they negotiate a second contract for Lamb. Dak is signed through 2024, since 2025 and 2026 are void years for cap salary purposes. However, if he continues to perform well, then he should get a third contract from the Cowboys. The more interesting contracts impacting Lamb are the other wide receivers. Michael Gallup, who unfortunately tore his ACL late in the season, he's a free agent this offseason. He could end up re-signing with the team since he's coming off a serious injury, or he may get a good deal somewhere else and miss most of next year. We'll see. And then at this time, Amari Cooper is signed through 2024, but the team has an out this offseason, 2022, and can cut Cooper and save over $10 million depending on how they cut him and when they cut him. So the Cowboys do not have a lot of cap space going into 2022, so this could be a cap savings move that they make, and that will really change the outlook of how we feel about CeeDee Lamb if he's now the bona fide number one option on that team. So now let's look at his dynasty outlook for 2022. So according to DLF, Lamb was the wide receiver 5 going into the 2021 season. He peaked at wide receiver 2 in October, and then he finished in January as wide receiver 3. So his value actually went up from wide receiver 5 to wide receiver 3, even though he honestly did not have a great statistical year and was not an elite wide receiver. So he's currently 22 years old. He's going to turn 23 in April as he goes into his third season. So Lamb is young and talented and tied to a top 10 QB on a high volume passing offense. So most people are really excited about Lamb, and that's why his ADP is the wide receiver 3 right now. He has shown flashes of elite abilities, but he does not have the target volume of an elite receiver yet. I do not think Lamb's value can go any higher at this point, but he will stay as a wide receiver 3 if Amari Cooper is cut from the Cowboys this offseason. That's really is the big factor we're waiting on. I just don't see him jumping someone like Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson, which would probably be your wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 right now in Dynasty. So now let's look at some trades going on recently with CeeDee Lamb. So looking at the DLF's trade finder, a couple weeks ago on January 22nd, there was a trade for Saquon Barkley and Devontae Adams for CeeDee Lamb and Chris Godwin. So interesting trade. Got younger, got rid of maybe some riskier players where we don't know where Devontae Adams is playing or who his quarterback's going to be. Saquon just hasn't looked right for a couple of years. Chris Godwin has an injury. So interesting value between that whole trade. It looks like CeeDee Lamb probably is the best player in that trade. The day before that, Nick Chubb and Rashad Bateman for CeeDee Lamb and Jalen Reagor. So to me, you're basically trading Nick Chubb and Rashad Bateman for CeeDee Lamb. Again, interesting value. Again, CeeDee Lamb is considered a top wide receiver, and he's still very young. So maybe you're trying to get away from a slightly aging running back before he loses too much value. And mid-January, we had a trade of Jalen Waddle and a 2023 first-round pick for CeeDee Lamb and a 2022 second-round pick. So I think Lamb is definitely valued more than Jalen Waddle, but there's plenty of Waddle supporters. So that might actually be a good trade for Waddle there. You get Waddle and a coveted 2023 first-round pick. So interesting value there. Same day, T. Higgins and a 2023 first for CeeDee Lamb. Honestly, I like the Higgins side there. I don't really think Higgins is that much less talented than CeeDee Lamb. He just has Jamar Chase on his team, but he still performed well. And you're getting a 2023 first round pick. So you could get another high value, young, talented player with that first round pick. And so now you have two young studs on your team and you give up CeeDee Lamb. And then back in mid-December, there was a trade for Chris Godwin and a 2023 first round pick for CeeDee Lamb. So again, a lot of risk with Chris Godwin not knowing where he's going to play and his ACL injury. But you're getting CeeDee Lamb and you're giving up that first round pick. So a lot of different trades out there, really interesting stuff. Something to keep an eye on if you're trying to pick up CeeDee Lamb or if you're trying to get rid of him. So if you're going into a startup this offseason, even if it's a super flex league, I think Lamb is going near the end of the first round, maybe the start of the second round if we're talking super flex. And at that cost, you expect him to hit a breakout season this year and take a significant jump in performance. Most likely, you probably need to see Amari Cooper get cut from the Cowboys. So not sure how people feel about Lamb at that value. It's definitely a risky pick right now, but hey, it could pay off in another year. But you may like some other guys going around that same spot in the draft. If you currently roster CeeDee Lamb, you should always be willing to listen to offers. And you may be able to sell high, but you need to get a haul in return. Lamb is young and talented, so if he breaks out like many are hoping he does, then you can expect him to be a top 3 wide receiver for a long time. So you should aim for at least 2 2023 first round picks, or if you think your team is a couple of seasons away from competing, so you can add some young talent next year going forward. And then even though Lamb is young, those 2 young players from such a talented draft class can really make a difference. You may have a better chance of trading for Lamb at a slightly lower cost in the offseason if Cooper stays on the team and Gallup resigns. So maybe you wait until the summer, see what happens after these June 1st cuts, and maybe you can take advantage of getting Lamb at a lower value. So those are just some different things. If you have them rostered, if you don't have them rostered, kind of when to target Lamb. But like I said, very talented, and he is still very young. So if you're going to trade him away, you got to get a lot for him. And if you're going to trade for him, hey, maybe you can strike now when people have some different feelings about him, but you're probably going to have to give up a lot. So now let's talk redraft. So we still got a long ways away until the redraft season starts, but I expect Lamb to go in the early second round. Again, unless we see Cooper leave, maybe he sneaks into the back of the first round. And right now, that's probably too high for me, just compared to other players at that ADP. And I just don't know if I want to take him on at that value. So again, a lot to go on this offseason. Lamb, again, just had a disappointing season, but hey, still a lot of talent, and we're still hopeful for 2022. All right. So that's all I have for Lamb in his 2021 season review. Thanks for tuning in. Again, please like the video. Comment if you'd like me to talk about any specific players, and I will make sure I get to them this offseason. And again, make sure you subscribe to the Triple Play Fantasy YouTube channel. Go ahead and follow me on Twitter at FFChalupaBatman. Thanks, guys. Have a great one.